It has to do with Proctorio. So like Proctorio like freaks everybody out because it's like, I don't know, the evil AI computers watching me take my test and how's it going to react to things. And like then the instructions are even scarier because it's like don't look away from the camera, don't have any music going, don't have people walking through, don't smile, don't enjoy life. Um, and really it like makes it sound super scary. So here's the thing. The way Proctorio works is if any of those things happen, a kid comes walking in or whatever, all it does is it flags it. So the AI picks up that something different happened. If it sees you looking down too much, like you're looking at notes or something, it flags it. And then it sends me an email saying, hey, check out the timestamp at this time. It appears the student was looking at notes, or it appears somebody else came into the room. Um, and then I go check it out and I see your kid ran into the room and like wanted a drink of water and and no big deal. Okay. So like, don't worry, I guess is what I'm saying. It's not going to invalidate your whole test if your child runs in, uh, or whatever. So I guess I'm just trying to I guess calm some of the Proctorio fears. So never is your exam invalidated by an AI or a computer or even some person who's works for Proctorio. Honestly, I'm the only one who can do that, and I would only do that if it was like clear that you were cheating, right? Like, I've had students who I guess they thought that their second screen wasn't on Proctorio, so they're like totally Googling things on the one screen and then cheating on the test. And so like, yeah, that would get your exam invalidated if you were clearly cheating. But if you're not cheating, then don't worry. Okay. So anyway, so all those little things, don't worry about it. The worst case scenario, if you're not cheating, is that it's going to go to a review and I might like have to reach out and be like, hey, there was some weird stuff going on. But even that, like, I think I've done once in like years, 10 years of doing this. So it's very rare for even for me to get a notification. And then when I do, usually it's something I can just look at and be like, oh, okay, well, the other kid ran in or whatever. So anyway, so don't worry about Proctorio. Just worry about accounting because that's hard enough without worrying about Proctorio. The second thing is that Proctorio is a plugin through Google Chrome. That's why they suggest you use Google Chrome because it works best in Google Chrome. Occasionally, the plugins in Chrome, I don't know why, but they become unplugged in. And so the way you'll know if that's the case is when you try to open the exam, if it prompts you for like an access code that you don't have, okay, then, and I'm talking about when you open the quiz in the module. Let me click on the module real quick, show you what I mean. So when you go down to, let's see, whoa, that was awesome. All right, week 5 exam, and you click on that there, and you get here, and if it's asking you, and again, I'm seeing instructor view, so it's a little different, but if it's asking you for a password right here to get into this, that means that like Proctorio is not interfacing correctly with your Chrome, um, because because we have that password embedded into Chrome, into Proctorio, so that when they link up, it'll automatically allow you in. So I'll get emails every semester going like, what's the password? And I'm going like, it's if it's not working, that means, and usually it just means like close out of Chrome and restart it and it works fine. If you try that and it doesn't work, then sometimes you have to like go back up to and like reinstall Proctorio, which is a hassle. You just click on your extensions, click on Proctorio, and you can install it again there. It's not too big of a deal. Anyway, so that's another thing. Like sometimes, and when you're like ready to take the test and then something doesn't work, it kind of freaks you out because you're already nervous. And so be aware of that. So when we click on that, You see how that little screen popped up saying access code, and then it like went past it to week 5 exam 1. That's the Proctorio interfacing and putting the password in there. If it freezes on that, it means Proctorio is not working. And mine says preview quiz because I'm an instructor. Yours will say like take the quiz. So I'll click and open the quiz. And then all of this information is in here and you need to read it. I know people just don't, but you need to read it. And it's, gives you even some, if you're having technical difficulties, what to do. And these guys are Proctorio support. If you do have any sort of an issue, they're super amazing. Okay. They like usually take care of stuff right away. And then there's instructions. It says follow these instructions. And then when you click on this, then you'll have to put this password into it. Okay. So that'll be in McGraw-Hill. So when you click on this link right here, it'll take you to McGraw-Hill, and then there'll be a password for the exam. And what you're supposed to do is leave this quiz up in this tab, and then when you click on the exam, you'll be taking it. And what that allows is for Proctorio to see what you're doing and that's how the university has come up with for proctoring exams. I don't love it, but nobody asked my opinion either. They just said, this is how we're doing it. And so I saluted smartly and carried on. I learned that in the military. Sometimes they want a discussion, and sometimes they want you to salute smartly and carry on. So that's sort of, I guess, hopefully that will dissuade, or not dissuade, but help minimize some fears about Proctorio. Like, don't worry too much about it. And just mostly focus your energy on the exam, right? Because that's that's enough of a worry as it is. And then the other thing, I think most of you have seen this, but let me go back to the modules. There's a study guide for the exam, and I need to minimize or collapse these. They're so giant. So when we come down here to the exam, okay, when we click on the exam link, a lot of people will miss, let's see. Oh, maybe it's not in here. It's not. So, but it is in the modules, sorry, in my additional study resources. So up here in Brother Fox's helpful stuff, in the additional study content, there is a study guide. And like I said, you guys have probably all seen it, but in case for people who didn't notice it. So where is it at? Are we in the right one? Sorry.
On second page.
Why is it there? Oh, because it's down here by exam 1. Yeah, exam review. That makes sense. And so this was put together, not by me, okay, but by the course designers. And I've seen the exam, and I could tell you, as they wrote each of these bullet points, like this one, know the primary objective of financial accounting. It's because they were looking at the exam question, and it was like, what's the primary objective? Or, which of the following is a primary objective of financial accounting? And so, like, whoever wrote this study guide was seriously looking at the exam when they did it and made each of these bullet points just based on the questions. So the ones that are informational in nature, in other words, I always think if for an exam, I'm trying to break it down into there's informational questions, like you have to know what's the primary objective of financial accounting, or what's the difference between financial accounting and managerial accounting. Thus, informational, those are pretty easy to study based on this because you can just go look it up, right? And learn that. But then there's like problems where you actually have to solve the problem, and those are a little tougher, other than which ones, what to study here, which is pretty much everything in the chapters, unfortunately. But I just think this study guide is really helpful for those people, or especially for those informational questions, and pretty helpful even for the problem-based questions, because you can think more about which ones. Anyway, so that's kind of what I wanted to generally say about the exam. Does anybody have questions about the exam I can try to answer?
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Is the exam set up like the quizzes in McGraw-Hill? Is it set up like that?
It would be awesome if it was.
Oh, shoot.
Another piece of feedback. So it's more of like a multiple choice exam, or occasionally there's some fill in the blank questions. And so it's similar in the sense that the content is similar. So for example, like it says, know the basic accounting equation, assets equal liabilities plus stockholders equity. You might have a question that's like, if assets are this and stockholders equity is this, how much should liabilities be? And then it would give you like 4 choices. Okay. And so content is very similar. In fact, I think depending on people's learning styles, there are people who are like, man, the quiz access and the quizzes really prepared me for the exam. But we do have other people who are like, I didn't feel like it prepared me very well. And I think it has to do with like some people seeing a problem sort of presented in a slightly different way with the multiple choice that really throws their brain off. Other people are like, no, I mean, it's the same concept. It's just multiple choice instead of a big worksheet to fill out.
Okay.
So there was a really long answer to your short question.
So is it, we have a time limit, I assume?
Yeah, so it's 55 questions. And I believe the time limit, let me double check it, just so I don't give you bad info. Nothing worse than bad intel, right? Let's see. I'll just double check it by looking right at the information here. Wow, this thing is, let's see. Is it going to tell us in the information? That would seem like a good thing to do, right? To tell us.
It says 340 minutes.
That seems,
Oh, okay, I see it.
Where'd you see that? Okay,
Right
so
now.
okay, so I'm glad this came up. So this is the time limit for the quiz in which allows Proctorio to run. Okay, so this confuses people because it looks like, wait a minute, I have 340 minutes to take the exam. But what it's really saying is they expect you to open Proctorio before the exam and close it after. So there's this larger window, but that's not how long the exam is. I'm going to look in McGraw-Hill real quick. I'm glad you brought it up because that confuses people every semester, and I forgot to warn everybody about it. Sometimes I feel like instead of an instructor, I'm like an ensign to the nations or to the class, standing on the peak saying, look out for that one. I know I just compared myself to like, all right, let's see. So this will show us 180 minutes. Still, that's 3 hours. And I promise you, if you're not done in 3 hours, you're going to be really frustrated. So, so I mean, we could give you an extension or something, but it's 3 hours is a long time to be sitting there taking an exam. And so I'll tell you, probably on average, students take between 90 minutes and 2 hours to complete it. Some people, it's just their nature, they're meticulous or whatever, they'll take the full time, they'll take any amount of time you give them. But on average, people get done with it in about 90 minutes.
Okay, one more question. I
Yeah.
thought I saw on there that we can use a calculator.
Yes, so you may use a calculator, you may use scratch paper, you can use Excel, but that's it. And so, people will ask, like, if I have blank scratch paper and then the exam starts and I can write out some formulas or whatever on it, is that okay? And the answer is absolutely. If it's blank to start with, and then you're writing stuff from your memory, that's not cheating, right? And so that's fine. What I would do, even though I think it's sort of silly, but the recommendation is that you show your blank scratch paper to the camera. I guess that's like a way of saying, I'm not cheating, even though like again, if someone wanted to cheat, they could always find a way, right? They would have one with notes on the table and show a blank one. But I'm not trying to give you ideas. I'm just saying, like, recognize that that's what they recommend. So it doesn't hurt to be like, okay, it's blank, and then, go from there.
Thank you.
It's kind of like I tell my mother. I was raised by a mom who would be like, we'd go and like be like, kids eat free. So she'd be like, you're 12 today. Or like, and so you had to like, they'd ask you, how old are you? And you'd be like, 12. Or like when we go to the drive-in movie, she'd like make us hide like under a blanket in the back seat, right? And like in her mind, like that wasn't stealing, right? To her, like that was just like, I don't know, giving the man some of his back or something. I don't know how she saw it. But later in life, I remember we were talking about that, and she's like, why don't you just take it? And I'm like, Mom, I'm not going to be a thief for like $12. Like that, that's how I feel about it. And she never thought of it that way. But I think that's kind of how it is cheating on an exam too, right? Like I know I've cheated a couple times when I was a kid in high school, and like I remember those, and I didn't like how I felt when I did that. And so it's easy enough for me now not to, but I can get how sometimes when it feels really high stakes, the pressure's on to do that. So I mean, it's one of the great things about being at BYUI is like we know who we are, and we're not perfect, but we are trying to be good and decent and honest. And so that's better than proctorio in my mind. Like my tempo recommend would keep me from cheating more than proctorio. Anyway, that was whenever I do that to my kids, they're like, oh man, why don't you just punish us? Now you have to make us feel guilty. I said, you convicted yourself. I didn't make you feel guilty. Other questions? Daphne turned her camera on. I thought that meant she was getting ready to speak.
I actually already took the exam. I didn't know if you were going to cover anything else, but I was just going to pop in and see.
Well, yeah. So like once we finish, if any other questions about the exam, I am happy to cover other material. I just wanted, I know that that's on people's mind this week. Did you destroy it, Daphne? I didn't
I
look at
only
the grades
missed
yet.
one.
Well, okay. So, hey, it's doable, right?
It's totally doable. I
Right.
thought that actually, like in comparison to like the homework and stuff, I thought that the test questions were fairly simple to me. There wasn't like a lot of like complicated, some of the homework questions I thought were harder than the test questions.
And did you use the study guide to prepare it all, or did you just do it?
Mhm. Yeah, I used the
Okay.
study guide just to kind of refresh some of those terms in my head.
And did you feel like it lined up pretty well? Well,
Mhm.
apparently, if you only missed one.
Some of the stuff that it said it was like heavy.
Uh-huh.
I didn't think was very heavy. I mean,
Okay.
like know the concept, but like I don't know. There was a few things where it was like there's going to be a lot about this, and or that's the kind of impression that I got, and I didn't feel like it was a lot about one certain thing or another.
Right. Yeah, and I think probably the most important advice is you know these concepts that you're like, oh, I feel confident with this, and others where you're like, no, I need more. I need to really understand this deeply, right? I will say things like the accounting equation, and then like the expanded accounting equation, where it has for equity, it has capital stock or stock minus minus dividends and revenue minus expenses. Make sure you understand how that all connects and works kind of backward and forward, because there are questions where it's like, if you know these, you've got to solve for the other one. And but again, just study and prepare and do your best.
I
Any
feel
other
like the
questions?
thing that helps me the most is just like mentally picturing what is actually happening. Like, you buy something on credit, you're getting something, one tangible item, and you're, getting a bill for that. So
Right.
the bill goes here and the asset goes here. So I don't know. I maybe it's because I've had, real world experience, but that just
Yeah.
helps me whenever I do anything like this. It's just to mentally like okay, this is, or especially like whenever you're expensing after you've already like prepaid for something or whatever, it's like, okay, well, we already did this, now we have to do this kind of thing, like,
Right. No, and that's exactly what works best for me too. When I can picture like, oh, I paid my insurance guy $1,200 for the year, and now each month I need to recognize that I've used up $100 worth of that insurance, like, and claim it as an expense. That helps me to like actually picturing it, like how is the money moving, or did I get money that I haven't yet actually done the work for, or whatever. All of that helps me too. So I'm glad you brought that up. Any other questions about the exam before we kind of open it up to questions about other material? All right. So either that means I'm incredibly thorough, or that you guys are just cool with it, right? Or that you're dying inside worrying about it and don't want to talk about it anymore. You might cry. That could be happening too. That happens to me sometimes. So what other, oh man, I had my grandkids at the house this weekend. I think somewhere, I mean, we had 8 children, but somewhere I've lost the ability, and they just exhausted me. It's like they can make a mess in one room, and somehow I have them in there with me cleaning up the room, but somehow they've made a mess in the other room. Why they're in there, I don't know how they do it. It's really amazing. Anyway, they're 5 and 3, and then a 9-month-old that's just crawling and getting into everything, and I'm not used to it. All right, I don't think you guys care that much, but there's my life. All right, so do we have other stuff you want me to go over? Usually I don't do like a presentation type of a little PowerPoint this week because, but I can if there's like, if you want me to look at sort of the new material. People are thinking about test and not about the material they're going to pick up after Wednesday, but I'm more than happy to kind of go over some of the stuff we're going to get on Wednesday. If I just don't want to add more to your brain. What do you think? Anything specifically you want me to look at, or more broadly?
I have a couple.
Okay.
So do you want me to, so it was on week 4, quiz access, chapter 2, problem 8.
Come on, quit being silly. There it is. Does it look like that?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm in instructor view, so it's got like answers, which probably means the numbers are different, but probably the accounts are the same. So
So I don't know.
ask me your question.
All right. So I got August 2nd wrong.
Okay,
So where would that supposed to be?
sure. So let me look at it up here. So on August 2nd, the company pays $3,100 in cash for an insurance policy covering the next 24 months. So we're paying cash, but we don't really have the expense yet. Okay. So the whole,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yes.
It marked me wrong for the second August 2nd,
Okay.
but I don't
Yes.
see a second August 2nd.
Well, it's one transaction always has 2 things happening, right? So the whole fundamental idea behind accrual-based accounting is that we're going to record expenses when we incur them, not necessarily when we pay them. So for things like insurance, where we often pay in advance, we're just going to record that as an asset called prepaid insurance. And so, like on August 2nd, we're going to have prepaid insurance, which is an asset, increasing, and then cash, which is an asset, decreasing. So that's why there's 2 things happening there. And again, so if we take Daphne's suggestion, I would picture me like, this will probably lose everybody under the age of 20, but I would picture me writing a check to my insurance agent, right, and giving it to them. But I don't do that anymore. Now it just comes out of my account like auto pay. But still, I'd picture the money going out of my account. So that's cash decreasing. And then me having this insurance coverage for the next year. And that having the coverage is called prepaid insurance. I paid in advance for this. Then, of course, as the year progresses, I'm going to recognize, oh, I've used up some of that coverage. So now I've incurred the expense. And I would, at that point, I would debit the expense and credit the prepaid insurance account.
Okay, and on the August 2nd, you don't need to put the 3,100 brackets?
I guess not, because we're saying decrease.
Okay,
No, it is frustrating because like sometimes it wants you to, and you're like, tell me what you want, McGraw-Hill, and I'll do it. What I hate about that is sometimes like you don't put it in as a negative and they want a negative. And then you're like wondering, did I fundamentally misunderstand the whole problem? And the answer is no, I just didn't put it the way they want it. So that's frustrating.
okay, that was that one. The first part of 9 on right after 8.
Okay. So here we're preparing a trial balance. Is that the one?
Yeah.
Okay. So here they're wanting us to figure out what the equipment is. And so they're giving us all these accounts, and then we're supposed to figure out how much it is. So this is a little bit challenging because what we have to do is sort of decide what type of account each of these accounts are. And then we have to make it balanced. So I would go about this using Excel because I'm lazy, and Excel is wonderful for lazy people. All right. So like I would have to recognize like cash is an asset. So that balance would be on the debit side. Accounts payable is a liability. So that amount would be on the credit side. Revenue, service revenue is a revenue. So it's going to be on the credit side. Rent expense. And just so you know, I'm dying inside a little not putting these in order, but I'm just putting them in the order they're in here. I really want my assets to all be together, but it's not really necessary for the whole problem. Equipment, we don't know yet. Dividends, we'll have a balance on the debit side. Common stock, we'll have a balance on the credit side. Wages, expense, we'll have it on the debit side. So what we have to do, accounts receivable will be a debit, and unearned revenue. What we have to do is, I guess what they're testing several types of knowledge here. Like first, we have to know what type of account each one of these accounts is. So cash is an asset. And then we have to know what the normal balance for an asset account is, and that it's a debit. That accounts payable is a liability and its normal balance is a credit. That revenues are a normal balance of credit, expenses, normal balance of debit, etc. So there's several things going on there, if that makes sense, that they're kind of asking us to be able to do. But now that I have all those, I can add up the balance of that debit side.
The cash is incorrect though.
Oh, 11,000. Thank you. You don't want to miss a zero as an accountant. That can mean, billion to 10 billion, and then you're fired. Okay. Not really. Usually you have processes in place that would catch it, like the fact that my trial balance won't balance, right? So now I can see, oh, look, I've got a difference of $17,000 between my debit side and my credit side. So my equipment must be $17,000. And now they balance.
Brother Fox, I actually did my trial balance first to figure out the equipment.
Right. Well, and if you did this right, then doing the trial balance would be super easy because I have all the things here. I would just put them over, except that now over here, they're in order the way I like them, right? With all the assets, cash, accounts receivable, and equipment, with all the liabilities, accounts payable and unearned revenue, stock, dividends, then the revenue and expenses. So yeah, that would make sense. You would think the people who designed this might put the trial balance first, but they're bullies. And I don't like bullies. I might drive out to California and have to rough somebody up. I don't know. Hey, are you the person who made the accounting stuff for McGraw-Hill? I got a friend here who wants to meet you, like that. I don't know. I'm not really a violent person, but McGraw-Hill sometimes brings me to it. Did that help? Did that clarify, Heidi?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, good.
Absolutely. And it was- let's see.
Whenever everybody has taken the exam, are you gonna go back and like are we gonna be able to see what we missed and be able to review those things?
Well, that'd be nice.
I know.
But so I will tell you that like I don't know exactly why. I guess because they don't want to have to recreate a new test every semester, but they're super uptight about us opening it up so people can see what they missed. And so I'm allowed to like, and you'll see it like my feedback, you'll see feedback, you know, in Canvas after you take the exam, usually within a couple days, where I'm saying like, you know, what I find is like, if I go through and I take the time to like put together really lengthy feedback for everybody, like 4 people actually look at it. So instead you'll see me put like, you know, if, you know, good job or whatever, or don't get discouraged. If you want more detailed feedback about what you missed, let me know. And then if you say, yes, I would, then I'll give more detailed feedback. I'm allowed to give like the topics, you know, and say, well, you scored low in these topic areas. And then if somebody was like, I really need to see, I can do that, but I have to do it in a one-on-one sort of basis. I can't just put it out there for the whole class. So in essence, I have to say, to get on like Zoom with you one-on-one, and we can bring it up and look at it together. But they don't want to just like dump it out there for everybody. And I get that, but man, it makes it kind of a real hassle for people who want to see it. When you ask them why, their answer is exams are they're for, you know, measuring how much people have learned. They're an assessment. They are not a learning tool. So which I don't fully agree with. I believe in what are called like formative assessments, which are so because for me, when I make a mistake and then I see my mistake and figure out how I did it wrong, then that's when I learn. That's when it locks into my brain forever. But their argument is you get to do that on the quiz and quiz access, and on the exam we're just measuring. So again, a really long answer. You'll notice most of the length of that answer was me deflecting blame onto the accounting department at BYUI and not accepting any blame myself. There's a skill that you learn. That's not always a great skill, is it?
I think I know which one I missed, and it was just worded weird. And I read it and I read it and I read it, and I was like, not really sure. But I mean, like the rest of them, I went back and I was like, I know that one's right. I know that one's right. I know that one's right. But that one, I was just kind of like, So I think I know which one it was, but I don't know what the right answer was, I guess, or what they wanted
Right.
from me.
Daphne, does it show you like how much you got or how many correct answers you had after your quiz?
It gave me my score, and in over on the left-hand side, it tells you that each question is worth 1.8 something per question or whatever. So I know I only missed one because of the score. So
right.
Yeah.
So it'll give you like an overall score, but it won't give you, it won't
Also,
tell you what you missed.
during the middle of the exam, it kind of got weird and kicked me out, and I got back in there. And after I got back in there, the next button didn't work anymore. So I had to press like that little grid thing so that it popped up with the questions, and then click on the question, and then we'll go into the answer. I don't know if that was just a me thing, but
Yeah, I don't know
I
either.
think it was around question 17. It was like a multiple step question that it at that point decided the next button doesn't work anymore.
Okay, and I will tell you that's not typical. I'm not saying it was your fault or but
Oh,
that's-
I would
like-
totally I might have
don't
broken
plan on that
it.
happening to you, but do know that if something freezes up and boots you out, you can get back into it. Okay, so it's not like
Yeah, I did freak out at first, and
Right.
then I was like,
because
okay,
I'll
yeah.
get people like texting me, right, and I'm like, it's like a Friday night and I'm at my kid's ball game and I'm like, I have no way of looking at this for you. I'm sorry. And and also know if something does happen, you get kicked out and I'm not able to respond to it quickly, like I'm not going to be like, sorry, you get an F. Like we'll find a way. If it means, reopening it or something like that, like we'll find a way. Yeah, I try to be available, but I have a family and a life and calling and a job and so I can't always immediately respond. But I know when people are taking the exams, that's a time when they're feeling, I guess they're feeling kind of vulnerable, like you just want to get this taken care of and it's not working. But it doesn't usually freeze up, but I have heard of that happening. So sorry, Daphne.
Hey, it still worked out. So as long, I'm not messed up about it. I just thought that I would let them know that if it does happen, you just like click on the little square with all the little squares, and
Right.
it'll let you go from problem to problem without having to press the next button.
So she means like, I'm in the preview, but at the top of your assignment, like you can, instead of going to next, there's like it looks like a little grid with squares and you can click on that and it'll let you choose which problem you want. That's what you're describing, right? Maybe Proctorio doesn't like Southern accents. You ever thought about that?
Probably so. They're
Yeah.
from California.
Right. They're like, this person's probably lives in a red state like that. All right. Sorry. All right.
I do live in Texas, so.
Sounds like East Texas, so I don't know. Where are you?
Well, I'm from West Monroe, Louisiana.
All right. Yeah, we had
Yeah.
that conversation.
Yeah, so that's the accent that I live in
Right.
Texas.
All right. Any East Texas and West Louisiana, same thing. Accent, it's very close. Any other questions? Sorry, I don't mean to get us off topic. I'm just
That's okay. Let's see, week 4, chapters 1 and 12. Oops, I think it was number 6.
okay. So
No, was it 6?
I mean week 2.
Oh, 8.
Week 2, chapters 1 and 12.
No, week 4.
So
It was a quiz. Sorry.
right, but there's no 1 and 12 is a week 2 assignment.
Oh, you're right. I wrote it wrong.
Okay. So the chapter 1 and 2 quiz, or 1 and 12 quiz.
Yes.
Okay. Just make sure I'm going to the right place.
Thank you.
Which problem?
Number 8.
All right. Yeah, so this is one of those where they're really trying to highlight sort of the relationship between assets, liabilities, and stockholders' equity. So like it says, what is the amount of equity at the beginning of the year for company A in 1A? And then for each of these, it will like give you, let's see. Okay. So again, we're having to figure out, okay, so we know these are assets, we know our liabilities at the beginning of the year. We know our assets, but we don't know our liabilities at the end of the year. And then we have changes during the year. So again, they're kind of like counting on us to recognize that assets equal liabilities plus equity.
Okay.
So I'd say my assets of 47,000 equal my liabilities of 38,540 plus equity. Assets, liabilities, and equity. So I can solve that just by saying my assets minus my liabilities will equal my equity. So that would be my equity at the beginning of the year, 8,460.
Got it. You know what? I was making it more complicated than it needed to be then.
Yeah, for some reason, accounting does that. So often I'll find myself overthinking something, and then usually it's some, junior accountant that just got out of college is like, why don't you just do this? And my response is, what do you know? You just got out of college. And then they're exactly right. So, because I was thinking too hard.
Because if we're supposed to find the question marks on B, C, D, and E, where would we put those?
We're not necessarily being asked to find those. It's just leaving them out so that we have to do some
Oh,
thinking.
a scale. Okay.
So, like, for example, the second one wants to know what is the amount of equity at the end of the year. So now we can't do it so easily because we don't have the liabilities. Okay. So we would have to say, well, our equity at the beginning of the year was 8,460. They issued stock. They had a net income and they paid dividends. Oops. So now I can figure out my equity plus my stock issuance plus my net income minus my dividends. What did I not put? So my equity at the end of the year will be 6,480. And then, oh wait, that's not right. What did I do wrong? 12,440. I think I left something out. Plus 6,000 plus 12,440. There it is, 23,400. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, because if they just gave us liabilities, we'd be like, oh, well, that's easy. It's just the same thing I did on the first one. So now they're trying to teach us the relationship between equity and net income and stock purchases and dividend payments.
Gotcha.
And then on the third one, it says, what was the liabilities during the end of the year? And now that I know, if I know my equity is 23,400 at the end of the year, and my assets are 52,000, I should be able to solve for my liabilities just by taking my assets minus my equity. Since these two always have to add up, right?
Right.
So that's how they're kind of walking us through all of this to make sure we understand the relationship between each.
Okay. And then can we look at number 10 on the same thing?
All right, number 10 wants us to prepare a statement of retained earnings. Is that the right one?
Yeah.
Okay, so we start with the retained earnings from the prior year. And so they kind of give us somewhere up here. Here it is. They give us the balances of our accounts. So here we have the retained earnings as of December 31st of the prior year and the retained earnings December 31st of the current year. Okay.
Okay.
So we can see that there's a $2,000 change in those retained earnings. So when we get down to our statement of retained earnings, we actually are given this information for retained earnings at the end of last year and the retained earnings at the end of this year. So then we're going to add our net income, which was calculated up above in the income statement. Right there. We'll add the net income. So the retained earnings plus the net income gives us a subtotal of 21,600. And then we'll subtract the dividends, which we get up here in this information again.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's kind of nice they gave us the beginning and end so we can just make sure it all works, right? Kind of gives us a self-check.
And then when they have the red numbers, but there's no X, that means I put something in there that didn't need to go in there?
I don't know for sure.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to share your screen and we can look at it, we could probably figure that out, or
Well, it's number 12 on the same,
right, but I won't be seeing yours.
oh, I know. And I'm looking at my sheet. I printed it out. Oh, I'm not good at Zoom. So I'm not even. But I have quite a few red marks. You probably can't even see that, can you?
No,
Too
it's
blurry.
really
Okay.
blurry.
All right.
Are they like in this area here? Can you see my screen?
No, they're more down at the bottom.
Okay.
And I read somewhere that it said, if a number is put in there, and there's no check or something, that you didn't need to put one in there.
Anybody have any feedback on that? Like, again, I only see it from the instructor view, so I can't see what she's seeing, if that makes any sense. It's a little frustrating at times. I thought maybe someone else would, you know.
So what I learned in accounting 180, when we had big spreadsheets like this, I cheated in my own way. I put zeros in every single box. And after I'd already put in my initial, what I knew was right, and I would put zeros in, and then I would check it, and then it would tell me if there needed to be a number in there or not. Because you have your 3 times to check it, right?
Right.
Mhm.
So I would check it the first time, and the second time, and before I checked it the second time, I would put zeros in all the boxes.
Oh,
And
that's a
then
great
I would
idea.
check it and it would tell me if a number needed to be in there or not. So if it was 0 and it was a green, that means I didn't need a number. If it was 0 and it was red, it needed a number. So that's how I learned how to do it. And then it eventually taught me how to make sure that everything balances. Seeing that
Gotcha.
visual is what I needed. I needed to see that, yes, that box doesn't need a figure, but this box does need a figure. And so now I don't have to put zeros in anymore. But that's a good way.
You know what?
And
I'm
so-
gonna use that.
And
Thank
so
you.
the way this is set up, okay, is they want you to have a number on the balance line every time. So whether the balance is nothing, it still wants 0 as the balance, but not on the transaction lines. So on the transaction lines, it just wants you to put, like, the first transaction increases cash, increases common stock, but you don't have to put any zeros. And then the same thing on the next transaction. But then when you calculate a balance, they want to know the balance of every account.
Oh,
So
I see.
That's what they're
Okay.
doing there.
Oh, now I get it. Now I get it. Okay, that makes sense.
But I think Anne's way, I think that was Anne that was talking, it can be valuable in the sense that does cost you a check, right? But in the sense that you can start to see the pattern, like, oh, this is where they want zeros and this is where they don't. So
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense too.
we're running pretty short on time. I want to make sure that, is there anybody else who has, I don't want to leave somebody out there hanging, has a question before we have to finish up.
I just
I
have
have
some
a-
general questions.
Okay.
So par value means that that price was set like when the company was established, is that right? On the stocks?
Yes.
And then stated value, does that mean that that price wasn't set until later?
The stated value for our purposes, stated value and par value are synonymous terms. It's the same thing. And what I mean by that is, so when you complete your corporate charter and you submit it to the state, whatever state you're incorporating in, some states require you to put a par value, which is honestly a completely random number that they just want you to say, this is the base value of my stock. Other states, instead of calling it par value, they call it stated value. And then other states don't require it. So that's called no par stock, or stock that doesn't have a par value.
Okay, because there's like a question that said there was no par value for this stock. And then at the end of the question, it said the stated value is,
Right.
$10. So you just go by the stated value.
Yeah,
to
just
figure out and ignore the par value, since there is no par value.
right.
on
And
the
so
question.
like on your balance sheet, if it's a par value stock, it will say, common stock at the par value, and then any capital paid in addition to that par value. For stated value, it will just say common stock at the stated value. So it's really the par value and stated value act in the same way.
Okay, so just
two
go with
different names.
whichever one has
Mhm.
the number assigned to it.
Yeah.
Okay, and then treasury stock on the balance sheet, that comes in as a negative
Right.
number. And is that the only one that comes in as a negative? The treasury stock, right?
Yes. And you're talking about in the stockholder equity section, right?
Yes, in the
Yes.
equity section.
Yeah, because
Okay.
treasury stock represents stock that was issued by the company, but then they bought it back into the company. And so in essence, you're saying, like, if we put $1 million of stock out there and then we bought back $200,000, we don't want that to show as outstanding because it's owned by the company. And so, but we haven't canceled it either. So a lot of times companies will buy back their own stock to use like in employee stock ownership plans or retirement plans, things like that. So they're
Mhm.
always holding a portion of their own stock. And so we're doing that as a negative, because remember, common stock represents money paid in by the stockholders or the owners of the business. So when the company has bought that back from the stockholders, it's no longer out there and it's being owned by the company.
Okay.
I don't know if
Okay.
that makes sense, but that's
Yeah,
why it's a
that
negative.
helps.
Okay.
Okay, and then last one is when you do the T accounts, should there always be a beginning balance? Or I guess if they don't give us a beginning balance, you don't have to put one in there.
Yeah, so typically speaking, most accounts have a beginning balance, but if you have a new business, then that wouldn't have any beginning balances in anything, right?
Right.
Or for revenues and expenses, we reset our balances back to zero to start new financial periods. So there's often not beginning balances for our revenue expense accounts.
Okay.
So you would have to tell you, like, again, this is one of those areas where like accounting is easier in real life because you have it in your books already, than it is in a problem where you have to like be like, are they telling me there's a beginning balance or not? In real life,
Right.
you would look at your books and you would see there was a beginning balance. So it's a little frustrating.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. And I think someone else had a question too.
Yes, in the study guide, it's talking about fair value. I wonder what that is because it's not in the book. I guess I missed it or something.
Okay, so tell me what you're looking at. Which chapter is it under?
I think it's chapter 11, where it says the par value, stated value, and then fair value.
Okay. So par value and stated value that we talked about, okay,
Yeah.
those are just like these arbitrary numbers that get assigned when we create the company. But fair value, they mean like the fair market, or is another term for like the market value of the stock.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I was like wanting to make sure that's what it meant.
Yeah.
And then I have another question regarding the death ratio, because in the financial analysis, it was asking for a different format for death ratio, and then on the quiz, it's asking for different one too, like the decimal point or something. So I got that wrong on the financial statement because I thought it was asking like the same format like the quiz access, but it didn't. So when I redo it, like I got it right, but then I got deducted. So I was wondering if that's gonna happen on the exam or not.
Well, so So yeah, the challenge with these is sometimes they want you to express it as a percentage. Sometimes they want you to express it as a decimal. I'm not looking at that specific problem, but that's often what occurs.
Yeah.
And there'll be a little percentage sign after the little box, okay?
Okay.
And so that'll tell you, oh, if I came up with 0.58, they want 58% in there.
Okay.
That being said, most of the exam is multiple choice. And so it's not like you're inputting the answer, you're just choosing one of the choices. I think there's some that are fill in the blank, but
No,
no,
fill in the
Daphne?
blank. Nope.
Okay, so they're all multiple choice. So that will solve that problem to
Thank
an
you.
extent. Have we had enough for one night? I don't know about you guys, but my bottom gets sore after an hour. I got to stretch whenever there's a song in the middle of conference, right? Like, I love conference, but like an hour of sitting, it's tough. Anyway, any last things? I hope this is helpful. And I hope I started recording this because, okay, I did, because there'd be some people that would be very sad if I couldn't post the recording because they were asking for it. They're like, you moved it to Tuesday, I can't do it. All right. Well, thanks very much for taking the time to be here, and have a very terrific night, and just go destroy the exam, make the exam cry. Just do your best, and things will work out fine. That sounds like Gordon B. Hinckley, huh? Like just do your very best and things will be okay. You're like, yeah, but I still wanted a better grade on my exam, President. Okay. Anybody willing to offer a closing prayer for us?
I'll do it.
All right, great.
All right. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for this day and for this time that we got to come together and learn some things and share some knowledge. We pray that those who have not taken the exam might have thy spirit with them, and that they might be able to call to remembrance the information that is needed to do well. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. All right, have a great night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.